to talk about kind of retention, how it impacts email marketers, and kind of the space that it kind of plays in the marketing pie, kind of where it fits and how it's an opportunity because, again, email is one channel that really connects people across a lot of different areas, but it's one of the more consistent channels in the marketing ecosystem. So I guess a little bit about me. I always start off with this because this is kind of like the shameless first slide for everything. I live in Greenville with my wife Anastasia and our son August. He's about 2.5 years old, from Kansas City, Missouri. I know we have some Chiefs fans in here. Woo! I've worked in marketing in some capacity for about the last 14 years or so. It sounds kind of crazy. It sounds even crazier when you're the one doing it. And in my spare time, I like jogging and reading. I spent most of my career working in social. And spending time working in social, you see a lot, just a little bit of everything. It moves pretty quickly. From there, moved over to the e-commerce side, had some fun in the e-commerce side, recognized some opportunities that I saw, hey, this is kind of a underserved market, had some, again, growing pains and learning opportunities, again, working with one e-commerce organization, but recognized this opportunity to take a step in a different direction, and started my own business and started teaching in the Clemson MBA program. I've been really lucky, was director of social at Clemson University, and I know we have some former Clemson University relations team here. And then, I get to work with really cool clients, and I know some of you guys are in the room too. So, why retention is relevant, or why we're talking about it. So, like I said, working in marketing for the last 14 years, I feel like I've had probably at least 7 or 8 career changes. Every 2 years, you got to learn it all again and kind of start from scratch because it changes and evolves so fast, especially working in social, which is always a challenge. This marketing, basically what a business's marketing pie looks like, is going to be really changing and quickly evolving. There's basically never been more channels to market through ever. And when we think about that, it's kind of like technology today is moving and evolving about the slowest it's going to evolve for the rest of our lives. It's only going to get faster, and it's only going to accelerate. And as marketers, we have to kind of always be understanding what's going on, how's it changing, what's evolving. And with all these different channels in our marketing quiver, we've got to understand, hey, how do we pick and choose the right ones to be most effective in the work we're doing? And it's not easy. Depending on the industry you're in, this can be a tough puzzle to solve for a lot of organizations because as marketers, you kind of want to jump on what's exciting. There's so many new things that everybody wants to jump on top of, and it's not always the best decision to make, but it's kind of exciting, it's kind of fun. You always kind of want to be dabbling your toe in new places. And sometimes as businesses grow out, kind of evolve and they build out their marketing ecosystem, it's really easy to see some of those businesses place a disproportionate amount of emphasis on acquisition. Who here thinks acquisition's the main goal of the majority of their marketing efforts? We got 1, 2, 3. This is a safe space, guys. Come on. This is where there's no going to be. Yeah, it's an exciting space to be spending time in because again, you're bringing in new people. It's a challenge to find your customer base, and a lot of times that's really natural in trying to build your product market fit and understand, hey, we need to build a group of buyers behind our product. But a lot of times, again, that acquisition side can be really dependent on 1 or 2 channels, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Facebook, Google, and being kind of too dependent on a few specific channels to drive revenue in your marketing leaves you kind of a vulnerable position. When things change quickly, the day that Facebook or Instagram went down for the day, some people were very nervous. And it changes the game because, again, you don't necessarily have the strongest foundation. I always think about it, basically, if you're kind of dependent on 1 or 2 marketing channels, you're kind of riding a unicycle. You're going to get where you need to go. You're going to have some fun. You may not have the most stable foundation on the way to getting there, or the most stable ride. Again, trying to move from that unicycle to something a little bit more structured in terms of how we develop our marketing ecosystem. And constantly focusing on acquisition can kind of get expensive too. So again, understanding how much money you're spending and how much of that investment is going to be as profitable as you want it to be. Also, looking at this, a lot of times I always see kind of, hey, this retention side, as opposed to just focusing on acquisition, the retention side and the email side doesn't always get the time and attention it deserves. I always kind of joke that like email and retention is kind of like the person your parents wanted you to date in high school. They're like smart, reliable. They're probably going to grow up to be a doctor or a lawyer, but they're not sexy. They're not exciting. They don't ride a motorcycle or wear a leather jacket. So it doesn't always get the attention it deserves, even though for a lot of businesses, like, hey, this is one of the biggest opportunities they have because suddenly you can, again, get people to purchase more consistently and over. So wanted to kind of think through some ways to change that and think through some ways to kind of build arguments for it and for the opportunity that's available there to start to help, ideally, some of you guys have a little bit more leverage or understand how to frame something in a different way. We'll go through these six reasons I want to go through. The first one, I look at this as kind of one of those unique opportunities in terms of how to look and frame the revenue-driving components of the business and how to grow a business. This is our 3 growth multipliers. This is not my idea. I borrowed this, I think, from like Jay Abraham and a guy named Drew Sanaki in the e-commerce space. But basically understanding, hey, there's 3 ways to geometrically grow a business. Again, increasing the number of customers, increasing your average order value, or increasing your lifetime value. Which one of these do you think really comes to mind when you think about email? 2, 3, and 3 is a natural spot. Which of these do you think most marketers focus the majority of their attention and time on?
1.
Yeah, one's sexy. One's really sexy. So if you were to double any one of those, which one of those, like what would it do to the revenue of the business? So like, again, a little bit of math. I'm not going to make you guys do it. But yeah, you double any one of those, it's going to double the revenue of the business. Which of those comes with an acquisition cost?
1.
Yeah. So getting somebody to purchase multiple times drives a lot of revenue. And also typically, with customers who purchase more consistently from you, what's probably going to happen over the course of time if you have multiple products you offer in your assortment? Do you think they're going to purchase more of those over the course of time? Hopefully. And that's kind of one of your goals, is like being able to, hey, let's educate and inform them on what other products that may be complementary to what they're already purchasing. And how do we get them into a different basket, or how do we kind of create that, take a good customer and make them a great customer? And that's really one of those opportunities here, is because when you can communicate and educate those customers on what's going to be the value of the products, what's going to be the value of the brand, and how the emphasis you place on those products, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of like drive those average order values up along with that lifetime value. And this, again, cuts across a lot of different industries and just a different way of looking at things. The second one, owned land. Sorry. Planting your flag, again, it could be dumb, but owned land. Basically, this is where you're building a house on owned land. And I know a lot of marketing has talked about this, like, hey, you have your owned marketing suddenly. But do any of you guys like really realize how much different an email list is relative to another platform, and kind of how much more control you have over it? It is mind-boggling. Like coming from social to this space, I was blown away by having an actual list that you're not always battling Facebook or Instagram for access to. So this is how I got started in marketing. This was like Facebook 2008. This was the glory days when there was no algorithm. Basically, every time you shared something, it got seen by a lot of people. This was the wild, wild west, and it was a blast. This is a picture of me. Managed a running shoe store in college. We would get shipments of clothing in. I'd hand my colleague, Andy, like, hey, Andy, put this on. We're gonna take a picture of it. And he's like, hey, this is like women's clothing. You know that? I was like, yeah, don't worry. It's on Facebook. It's going to be great. And we eventually got to the place where we would sell a lot of stuff, like sell through entire runs of clothing before they would actually hit our sale floor. And we're like, hey, there's something to this. Over time, though, like that kind of eroded away, where realize, hey, every time this algorithm updates, every time it changes, we've got to work a little bit harder to reach that audience. And I've got to work a little bit harder to keep that audience engaged. And doing that work, like, it's really tough and it's really challenging, but it makes you a better marketer. But suddenly when you go into a place where you're not doing that same battling, it feels like the skies open up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can communicate anytime I want to, and hopefully it's relevant, and you're building an audience that you're not battling for. And it's really unique relative to a lot of other channels. So you can keep communicating even when you're not necessarily paying for ads or, again, battling an algorithm. So the third reason, or third concept, the customer lifecycle optimization. This is another piece that really kind of offers a lot of unique opportunities. Basically the idea of, hey, we have an audience. How do we take that audience and turn them into a customer? How do we take that customer and turn them into a great customer? And how do we kind of walk those audience members through the ideal buying journey for them? Because we can control so much of that communication because we know the context of their experience and their journey. Basically, understanding the behaviors we want to create and reverse engineering from there. So ideally, if we can take somebody from a social follower, again, social follower, we don't have as much control over. Get them on our list. If we can get them on our list, we can get them engaged. Once we get them engaged, we can ideally get them to a product page or a understanding more about our product or trying to understand more about our service. Once we can get them, again, understanding that product, we can probably take them to a first-time customer, maybe a first-time customer who refers, and then all the way up to that like holy grail of repeat customer or repeat customer who refers. And have you guys heard of like the 80-20 rule of like, hey, 20% of your customers probably drive 80% of your revenue? Where on this hierarchy do you think most of those come from? Yeah, those are the repeat customers. That's where so much of your revenue comes from because, hey, they're coming back in the door and they're purchasing from you again and again. And again, doesn't come with that acquisition cost. It's a little bit hard to see here, but this is kind of the customer lifecycle framework that I always like to look at and kind of understand how does this work and how does this fit into that customer's journey. But this is basically the buying decisions, the buying journey any customer is going to make. So basically starting from reaching them for the first time, that may be through, again, like paid social, again, creating demand for that initial product. That's going to be activating them across that journey. So once they become problem aware, helping them become solution aware, and helping to educate and inform them so they can make a decision. Once they get to that kind of convert stage, that's when they're looking for, hey, I know kind of what I need. I just need to find the exact version of it that I want at the right price, and how do I get it? And then afterwards, you engaging them to purchase again, purchase more frequently, or getting their friends to purchase along with them, so becoming an advocate for the brand. But if you can understand this customer journey and how people need different sources of information across that customer journey, and then what they need to get them back in the door, you can really optimize for, hey, I can understand how to leverage this at different touch points to get them back in the door if they've lapsed. If I need to get more in their basket the second time they purchase, how do I educate and inform them on what to purchase along with this product, what's going to complement this, what's going to make it better, and then what else do they need? Again, there are lots of different pieces of the marketing puzzle that are going to fit into this, but like I said, email is one of the places that has the most control over this because you can message at different stages, and so much of that is so contextual based on what the person's doing. The first-party data, I think, this is another area that's kind of getting more and more exciting. The more time people are spending in email, the tools are getting easier and easier to leverage, and we're able to do a lot of really cool things in the space. Also, it kind of pairs with third-party data becoming less and less reliable, and that being kind of on a downward trend. But basically, the data we collect allows us to have like a lot more intimate relationship with our customers. Like, this is super cool because, hey, we suddenly get to scale those like human interactions we really want to do face-to-face with somebody. We suddenly get to do those online in a really consistent, scalable way. This can be anything from like use case data. So like, if I know if somebody's going to be using my product themselves, is this for a parent or a grandparent? Those use cases really play a large role in to understand, hey, how do I frame this for somebody? How do I get them the right information they need so they know how to use it the right way or how to position it for the person they're getting it for? It's really helpful in understanding, hey, what do I need? What does that person need, and how do I meet them where they are? But I always kind of look at like, what does your email ecosystem look like? How are you doing things at different stages? And then basically, how do your automations, your campaigns line up with your audience so you can consistently work to grow all three of those areas? As your campaigns go, as your audience starts to build, you should be learning and growing from them. as your campaigns keep people engaged, keep people informed and educated around contextual content that hopefully adds value, and your automations hopefully create those behaviors you really want to see. This is kind of an example of, I guess, how you could do this. I work with a lot of e-commerce businesses, like some groups in the coffee space where understanding, hey, does somebody want like kind of a standard, like consistent coffee? Are they looking for like a Folgers or something that's less nuanced and more consistent? Or are they looking for a really nuanced coffee? Or are they looking for decaf? So like, how would these different use cases differentiate the way I'm going to market to them? Or how well do I understand how frequently are they going to use the product? So they're going to drink like one cup a day to 5 cups a day. So heavy user, light user, those are going to give me an understanding of, hey, how do I message this person and recommend the right products at the right time, and how do I onboard them in a way that's going to make sense for them? Because if I'm messaging to a decaf drinker the same way I'm messaging to a like nuanced fair trade single origin coffee, it's going to be a completely different customer I'm talking to. So really speaking to that individual really is going to help me understand them in a really intimate way. And then a lot of things that are available now are really cool because you can actually get, like some of this data can get really, really intimate and really unique. I think, how many of you guys use like quizzes or like data collection along the course of that customer journey? Like this is something that's so powerful and so valuable because you can find different ways to get those like weird connections that people would never expect, but it's really powerful and really human. I have one client that we collect their horse's name and horse's birthday. Is anybody here in the equestrian space? Anybody here ride horses? We got, okay. How do you feel about your horse? Like on a scale of like I love my like partner and my partner in life, and to scale of loving a horse, like where does a horse line up in that scale? Pretty high. Yeah. Dogs and horses, like yeah, it's the person's baby in so many ways. Like I know, like there are people in the equestrian space who have savings accounts for their horse. Yeah, like the same way you're going to have a savings account for your child's college, you have a savings account for your horse. It is crazy. So what would you say if like, hey, like send you an email in 9 days, hey, Skittles' birthday is coming up in 9 days. We just wanted to help you celebrate, and also here's like a gift guide for your horse. Love it. Yeah, it's so contextual and so intimate. Like, I know Skittles' birthday. They know Skittles' birthday. Oh my gosh, mind blown. But it's like those small things that you can do, and you can do that at a scale because you have that data and you have that insight you can use. And how well would that connect with the customer and keep them coming back because like they know my horse's birthday. Of course I'm going to purchase from them. It's really unique and intimate how well this can work. But again, coming from a space where you're kind of sharing content on a consistent basis through social, you get to line up the content with the context of somebody's life, and that is so powerful. This is another area where I think that kind of sometimes can get overlooked in terms of the capabilities in marketing too. I always call it like Jesse in the crowd, his eyes are going to glaze over when I say use the whole buffalo, who I've worked with in the past. But basically, how do I leverage the content I have across channels and across platforms, and how do I do that on a consistent basis to get the most out of it? Like how many of you guys marketing team invests in search content focused on search SEO? Yes, organic search is a powerful, great way to get content, build an organic audience, build a base of organic traffic, but how well can you leverage that content across those platforms too? So again, a search, something built for SEO may not rank or index for the first like 4 months to a year. It may take a little while for that content to actually drive value for you, but suddenly if you can monetize this through email, you can justify the investment in that expense really quickly, and then you can use it in multiple rounds in multiple different ways. And also, if it lines up with that customer journey, you can educate and inform that customer at the right way, at the right time to help them make a better decision along the course of that customer journey. And like for this, if I'm a coffee purchaser, if I have an article around coffee, ways to grind beans, I can line that up in my campaigns different times of the year because my audience may not see it in the same way, or I may send it to a different site, like a different subset of my segments. You can rotate that around every so often, or if it's how to make cold brew coffee, the summer is going to be a really relevant time for that. But I can also line it up in automations where it's like suddenly it serves up in my welcome series or a post-purchase sequence to really help them like use the product better when they get it. So they're going to enjoy it more. They're going to understand how to get the most value out of it. And then it may be something, a different hook to send someone as a way of trying to win them back into a purchase decision. But that leveraging quality content, I think, is one way that I've seen this work really well. And again, working in social, that's a place where we would use content all the time and try and get the most out of it. And then going into the email space, going to e-commerce, we would create pretty average content, and it would work really well because I'm sending it to the right person at the right time. If you guys go to freshwatersystems.com, there are some blog posts on there with videos about water filtration. And from the perspective of like, hey, I like really good quality content, they were pretty low on the low bar in terms of like how sexy that content was. But it worked so well because there is no Netflix for plumbers. And it worked so well with them. They were like, they suddenly know me. They know me. It speaks just to me. And it was a really eye-opener because I could suddenly understand, hey, I can suddenly make a bigger argument for this because we're suddenly able to monetize this really right away through email, and then it's going to rank eventually and drive a lot of organic traffic for us in the long tail. So this is a way that I can justify more investment in my entire marketing, but I have this automated, I have my automations that I can use that from, and I also have my segmented list of buyers in those categories too that I can send this to that's going to be relevant and valuable for them. And then reason number 6, I always think of this as kind of one of those big differentiators for so many businesses now, is we've talked about, like, again, like a lot of people have talked about humanity, again, your personalities, your brand. And so many businesses now, again, we're in a space where the barriers to entry for your business, the barriers to entry for businesses now has never been lower in so many cases. Like, you could have a Shopify site up in a few hours. You could have, again, lots of things ready to go. The infrastructure that had to be in place in the past isn't necessarily table stakes anymore, and you can really do things really quickly. So again, you're never going to necessarily outscale somebody in terms of like operations in those cases because, again, it's easy to do, and Amazon, or the largest player in your space, is probably doing it a little bit better and a little bit faster than you are. But this is a way that you can kind of take your product or service from a space where it may be looked at as a commodity into a space where it's a differentiated brand, because you can kind of decommoditize what you're doing by being more human, by being more relatable, by knowing your customers' horses' birthdays, and being able to find a way to connect the dots and really create value for them, help inform and educate them along that journey, and then really get them involved in like your brand and get them excited about what you're doing. So I always joke, like, you may be never able to outscale Amazon, but you may be able to outhuman them, and that's a differentiator, and that's what you need to be focusing on, because that's a powerful message, and that's something where you may not necessarily be the lowest price all the time, but you're known, liked, and trusted, and they feel like they are part of something bigger when they interact with your brand. Okay, so looking at this again, thinking about this in terms of like these 6 reasons, and again, this is going to work across the board differently depending on the industry you're in. Like the growth multipliers, this functions really well to kind of get people, again, understanding kind of where this fits into the marketing pie, or where this fits into my operations and where I need to be placing my attention. Owned land, this is how you're going to be, again, like planting your flag and really being able to lean on the value that you're creating for that audience and keeping that audience engaged and informed. That customer life cycle, understanding it, really optimizing things for it, and that's where those automations really play a large role. And again, like I said, those automations are a complete game changer for people. If you haven't necessarily seen them in the wild, it's really cool. And then first-party data, this is something that is going to become more and more important as time goes on. The better you know your customer, the more insights you have on them, the more you're going to be able to leverage that, and the more you're going to be able to create value for them. And then using the whole Buffalo to, again, leverage the content you have and leverage the marketing operations you have most effectively, and then ability to outhuman the giants. Like, this is something that's going to be more and more a priority moving forward, because suddenly, again, you're looking for a brand that you feel passionately sees you. You're looking for a brand that you relate to or understands the use case you have, and that's where you're going to be spending your money. Okay, but thank you guys so much.